Okay, I'd like to call the Site Plan Review Committee to order for Wednesday, August 7th, 2024. Roll call, please.
President Kardasky,
Here.
Trustee Paul,
Here.
Dennis Persick,
Here.
Dale Quinn,
Here.
Dan Pamprin,
Here.
Terry Rathburn,
Here.
Andy Krosky's excused.
Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands for, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And please remember our men and women throughout the world in uniform. I have no changes to the agenda. I need a motion to approve.
So move. Second.
A motion by Dale, a second by Dan Pampern for approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Motion carried. Number 5A, consider, discuss, act on the site plan review minutes from July 9th, 2024.
Move to approve if there's no other corrections or.
Second.
Motion by Gary Paul, a second by Dan Pampern to approve those minutes as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carried. Number 6, action items. 6A, action regarding the site plan review request for temporary signage for Halloween Express located at 825 Pilgrim Way, parcel VA-143-4. Aaron.
All right, thank you. I'll share my screen just to bring up the image. It's not the exact image, but it's a similar one. Then I'll hand it off to Will to take over the staff report.
Okay, thank you.
So Halloween Express is requesting a site plan review for proposed signage located at 825 Pilgrim Way for Suite B in the village of Ashwaubenon. For those that don't know, that is the former Bed Bath & Beyond. These proposed signage that they are proposing, you can see similar, is pictured up on the screen. They are looking to have it up from August 20th to November 5th. Since the proposed signage exceeds the size and time period that would allow normal approval process just by staff, Site Plan Review Committee review and approval is required for the above temporary sign. This sign is similar to the previous Halloween stores that have occurred in Ashwaubenon over the past couple of years, so this is essentially a renewal.
Okay. Does anybody have any
Was
questions?
this signage someplace else prior to this location? Same company?
I believe so. They tend to go around to different box stores that are empty for the lots.
Yeah, this is Halloween Express. There's typically 2 Halloween stores that operate in the village this time of the year. We have Halloween Express and Spirit Halloween. This is Halloween Express. They've been in the village for the past number of years.
All right. All right, there's no other questions. I'll move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Gary Paul, a second by Dan Pampern to approve as presented the temporary signage for Halloween Express. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carried. 6B, consider, discuss, act on a site plan review request for an accessory structure greater than 572 square feet at 1501 Fernando Drive, parcel VA-L186-5. Aaron.
All right, thank you. I'll share my screen again. Just bring up an image of the parcel that's proposed. So the subject parcel is 1501 Fernando Drive, parcel VA-L186-5. That's the one right here you see right in the middle of the screen. This property is zoned RE, Rural Estate. So it's in a southern part of the village, again, off of Fernando Drive. We do have larger parcels in the area, more of a rural feel to the area. Under our code, parcels within the RE Rural Estate Zoning District that are between 1.2 and 2.99 acres in size could have an accessory building up to 1,000 square feet. In this case, the subject parcel is 1.6 acres and proposing an 864 square foot accessory building, which is allowable under our code. The setbacks, green space will be met as indicated on the site plan for the building. The shed accessory structure will be located back here in the rear yard of the property. Since the accessory structure exceeds 572 square feet under code, it is required to be reviewed and approved by the Site Plan Review Committee prior to issuance of a building permit. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, the applicants are also in the audience.
Okay, does anybody have any questions?
Just so I'm clear, this meets all the requirements, correct? It's just the fact that it's over 572 that it needs approval.
That's correct.
I see there's a lot of other ones in that area. The only thing I wish I had was one that big. Move to approve is presented if there's no other questions with, I guess there's no staff recommendations.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Gary Paul, a second by Dan Pampern, to approve the accessory structure on parcel VA-L186-5. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 6C, consider, discuss, act on a preliminary planned unit development, PUD, request for a multi-use residential development at 460 Marina Lane, parcel VA-132-13. Aaron?
All right, thank you. And again, I'll share my screen to go through the proposal. So the subject development consists of three separate components. There is a proposed memory care community-based residential facility, or CBRF. As you see in the site plan, right up here in the top part, or I guess be the western part of this parcel, this is the vacant parcel on Marina Lane with the residence inn to be in the, I guess, the southwestern corner of the property, or so, with the Fox River to the east. And then to the southern part along Marina Lane, there's a 5-story senior housing apartment, and then a 6-unit single-story condo development along the river and the retention pond. This is a market rate development. Exterior elevations, as you see here, for the 5-story building, it does include covered parking on the first floor, or the first level. There are some units also on the first level. Then there are residential units also in floors 2 through 4. They have individual balconies as indicated in the elevations. These are the condos. As you can see here, single-story ranch style. Again, this will be located, the view of the Fox River across the storm pond that fronts on the Fox River itself. This is the community-based residential facility, or CBRF, for memory care. Again, this will be located along the northern boundary of the property. A couple of renderings of the development you see here. All of the proposed exterior materials are typically what we see: masonry, fully concealed fastener, metal wall panels, glazing, and then patios for the apartment building. And then for the condos and the CBRF, a mixture of masonry, board and batten siding, and then asphalt shingles, and your standard windows, doors, so on and so forth. Another view of the CBRF that you see here. There will be a pool, grilling amenities for the residents of the condos and the senior apartments. The subject property is zoned B3 community business. Due to the mixture of uses on the property, that's why the requirement for the preliminary PUD at this point. So the preliminary PUD allows for basically to give the developer a preliminary yes or no on the project before they go into detailed engineering and design, whether it's for stormwater, utilities, landscaping, lighting, so on and so forth. So the developer is Greenwind Development. Subsidiary of that, or separate LLC called Baymar Development LLC. Driveway access, let me just go back to the site plan, touch on that a little bit. Driveway access is to be from Broadway, as you see right here, as well as from Marina Lane, as indicated right here. As Broadway is a county highway, they will need to get a driveway access permit from Brown County Highway as well as approval to take out this section of the boulevard to allow for full access right in, right out, left in, left out from that drive access. The building, the apartment building will be 56 feet in height, which does meet the height requirements for this area. But since it is higher than 50 feet, they will require a approval from the Green Bay Austin Straubel International Airport Director. In terms of process, I do note that the planned unit development review objectives, again, should the preliminary PUD get a preliminary thumbs up from Site Plan Review Committee, Plan Commission, ultimately Village Board, would then go to final PUD status, and then we'd review the objectives found in subsection of the municipal code that basically identifies certain goals for PUDs to meet, and they'd be addressed at that time of the final PUD. In terms of recommended staff conditions, for the preliminary PUD, there's a few of them, so bear with me. I'll read them in for the record. Submittal of a final PUD packet, submittal of a lighting plan of photometrics that has light trespass at no more than 0.5 foot candles at property boundaries or to at least no more than currently exists on site. I mentioned as the building is greater than 50 feet tall within Airport District C, it does require application and approval from the Green Bay Austin Straubel Airport Director. All parking areas, landscape islands, and drive areas are to have curbing, either conventional curb pan or rolled. Screen any rooftop or ground-mounted mechanical units visible from the property boundaries or South Broadway or Marina Lane rights-of-way. Use of fully concealed fasteners for exterior wall panels. The catch-all meet all applicable requirements of Ashwaubenon site plan review and all other applicable village ordinances. From engineering, submittal of a detailed utility and civil plans with the final PUD packet. Contact Brown County Highway Department regarding driveway access and boulevard alteration on South Broadway, County Highway H. In terms of stormwater management, submittal of a detailed stormwater management and erosion control plans with the final PUD packet. From public safety, provision of a private fire hydrant at the northeast corner of the grilling area. For reference, that would be this area right here. That would then provide access to the condos, the interior portion of the apartment building, as well as the eastern end of the CBRF. Coordinate with Ashwaubenon Public Safety regarding FDC, Fire Department connection, and Knox box locations. And coordinate with Ashwaubenon Public Safety regarding fire apparatus access on Marina Lane Drive and internal turning radii. From Forestry, submittal of a detailed landscape plan and planting schedule with final PUD. From Bicycle and Pedestrian, identification of bicycle parking locations, and the recommendation that those should be consistent with the Association of Professional Bicycle and Pedestrian Associates. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, the development team with Greenwind Development and Alliance Construction is also in the audience.
Aaron, the way I'm understanding this is just approval of the PUD, am I correct?
This is for the preliminary PUD.
The preliminary PUD.
Correct.
That will come forward again along with another site plan meeting?
Correct.
The final?
Right, there'll be a final PUD with any changes that are necessary after they go through the preliminary PUD process.
Okay. I'm not questioning anything about the structure of the building. I know you do a good job on that. So it's just a preliminary PUD request. So what's the next stage for these people then?
So it'll go to Planning Commission this
That's
afternoon,
tonight yet?
and then Village Board at the end of the month for a preliminary PUD. The preliminary PUD is really intended to make sure there are no major red flags as we go through the process. Provided there are no major red flags, then they would submit a final PUD packet with the detailed engineering, civil, stormwater, lighting, landscaping, et cetera, at a future Site Plan Review Committee meeting, Plan Commission, and Village Board.
All right, so it will be in front of us again when? All right.
Yes, sir.
Anybody got any more questions?
I got a couple. So I really think this is a great project for that property. I have nothing against it, but I have a couple questions. So when the hotel was built, if I remember right, that detention pond was built to accommodate the entire property, correct? That's correct. Okay, so,
I guess, Dan, if you wouldn't mind, I'll probably just ask maybe a representative of the development team to maybe come to the microphone. you wouldn't mind?
Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
My name is James Hunt. I'm called Ted. My address, home address is 2827 Viking Drive, Ashwaubenon, 54304.
Okay.
Okay? Would you like me to say if there are any more questions, or?
So in terms of stormwater management, the size of that pond, was that constructed for development of this site as
Our
well?
understanding is that, yes, the pond was, and by the way, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be here and discuss these points. Our understanding from our engineers having a preliminary look and looking at the information that's been available is that the stormwater pond is to accommodate the entire site. And I would like to add that at the moment, it's almost a bit of an eyesore, and we're very prepared to work with the
Absolutely.
owners to see what we can do to, in effect, dress it up a bit, maybe even create an opportunity where we have some fountains, because it's going to form a major part of the backyards of the condominium townhomes. And we just like it nice for our purchasers of that area. Walking trail is also going to go right in front of that.
So that's what I was gonna ask.
So again, we want to have it looking as good as it can look.
Yeah, so part of the PUD, you're gonna work on getting a trail extended?
So there actually is a trail easement in place already.
Oh, there is.
Yep, so there is.
Good.
It's a matter of working, with, you can put it in, then the question is where does it go from there?
Yeah.
And we'll kind of work with the Railroad Museum and everyone else try to figure that out.
Okay. I think it's a great project, so I'm gonna make a motion to approve this
Okay,
for
but before we-
preliminary PUD.
Okay, but before we do that, I have a question. Are the condos and the townhomes sale or rental?
The townhomes will be sale, the apartment is rental, and the CBRF for memory care is effectively rental as well. It has residents, it's defined as residents.
And there is no assisted living included with this?
The CBRF memory care is included as assisted living within the overall definition.
Okay,
But
okay.
it will be solely dedicated at this stage. The operator may look at some minor differences, but at the moment, she has a CBRF memory care in Tanglewood in called Tanglewood in Stevens Point. She has one called Silverstone Memory Care in Appleton, Town of Grand Chute. We're under construction right now with the second one called Silverstone on Packard, which is Silverstone Memory Care 2. This will be Silverstone Memory Care 3 here in Ashwaubenon.
Okay.
So she's a good operator, very good operator.
So my other question is there any on-site covered parking?
We're not sure yet. This was preliminary, as Aaron has mentioned, and we're now taking a very close look at what is really going to work well within this market area. We've hired a firm called Mogenberg from here in Wisconsin, and they're giving us information in greater detail than we have about the market apartments. I'm not concerned at all about the sale of the condominiums nor of the apartments, but it's just the final detail for our financing purposes. And again, because Green Bay area, the greater Green Bay area is new to the operator, we're also getting information on the CBRF, just what's available in the area. So we will have more detail, which will lead to potential, some changes anticipated in the preliminary plans that we've submitted.
Okay.
They were used for the purposes of setting up our investment, which we have, individual or specific financing, which we have, with the exception of the apartment, which is just normal to be going through that process from our point.
Okay, okay.
Another question I have, I known that property for years. I know several things have tried to go on there over the years that I've known it, but is there any contamination problems you have with that soil on that property?
Our information to date from the DNR is that as the hotel was built and other work was going on in the area, they've accommodated the necessity of moving some of the dirt. We don't believe there's any remediation that's required, but DNR will have to be consulted and look at the progress look at the overall process as we go through it, just to make sure. But we are on top of that at the moment.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Okay, Dan, did you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I think I made it, but, I move to approve with staff conditions, the preliminary PUD for this piece of property.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Dan, a second by Gary, to approve the preliminary PUD for this property. Any other questions, concerns, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, 6D, consider, discuss, act on an ordinance regulating video boards within parts of the SE, sports and entertainment, and P, public use zoning districts. Aaron?
All right, thank you. So this was a request that came through from specifically one of the operators in the sports entertainment district to allow for the use of video boards for live action programming, basically to show Packer games, Badger games, whatever it might be, on a large screen, consistent with the parameters identified within the code. We have nothing on our code that specifically allows or prohibits, so basically with absent that, it is not an allowable use. But we wanted to get a better sense from Site Plan Review Committee, Plan Commission, and Village Board as to whether this is something that the village wants to permit in a very limited scope within the sports entertainment district. As the code is currently written, or as the proposed code is written, video boards would only be allowable to be turned on when the street upon which they front is closed. So that would be basically during Packer games, say when the Badgers and Notre Dame play. I'm assuming then Holmgren Way will be closed for typical game day condition. That would be the only time at this point, should this ordinance be passed, that those video boards could be used. So if there's a video board on Holmgren Way and Holmgren Way is open to vehicular traffic, that video board cannot be on under this ordinance. It can only be on when it is closed to vehicular traffic. That was a pretty clear condition, recommendation from public safety. They had serious concerns about video boards being on when there's vehicular traffic in such a high pedestrian-oriented area and basically distracted driving, so on and so forth. So the proposed ordinance does have certain, again, kind of technical standards talking about no glare on adjacent buildings or properties, has a dimmable component to it to allow for ambient light conditions. Also has a minimum size, which is basically if it's larger than a 55-inch television that's outside, it's considered a video board. And then the maximum size is basically the proposed video board that's requested by one of the operators in the sports entertainment district.
You know, the problem I have with the video board is because all the billboards are video. They run on the same principle. They are stationary for X amount of seconds before they can flash again. Why doesn't that pertain to this? Why does it have to be a video board playing the game?
That's the request of the operators, that it's used for showing games, requiring the static motion. I think from a billboard standpoint, and again, what makes sure clear on this is that video boards under this code are regulated separately from billboards. That's explicitly stated in here. I want to make sure it's clear that someone doesn't think a video board is the same as a billboard, because under the code, they're different. But the point of the video board is to allow for that live action programming. But again, only when the street is closed.
So that's what this ordinance is saying that we're looking at right now. It can be played while the street is closed. Real simple verbiage.
Correct.
Yeah, Gary, and Aaron and I talked about this quite a bit before presenting this, and how this was drafted is to prevent video boards going up and showing a form of advertising, kind of as Aaron was saying. So that would be in violation of our sign code and more defined as a billboard. So you wouldn't be seeing an advertisement for dinner and drink specials, wherever this would be, this specifically is only for any kind of video representation for a sporting event. Badger Notre Dame game, for example, or a Packer game or something like that, just for the patrons during that live event. So if there is any kind of advertising, then they would be in violation of this particular ordinance.
I got a little bit, maybe more of a comment than anything else, and that's, I'm a little concerned about potential proliferation of this kind of stuff, which may become, instead of a convenience or an attraction, it may become an annoyance if there's too much of it. That's just, I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but that's kind of one of my concerns.
That's my concern, is that if you allow one or two, how many sports bars do we have down there, and how many of these large video boards, they're the size, almost the size of a billboard. How many of them are gonna be down there? Is that what we want our community to look like? We're gonna have at least 5 or 6, and so I personally will vote no on this, because I don't think that's what we want it to look like down there.
So on the advertising side, I don't know how you could limit that. Because if you were doing network NFL game, there's more advertising in those games than there are game now.
Right, and to clarify that, you're gonna have advertising during an NFL game.
Yeah.
But the
Or a
point is
Badger
that
game.
it's primarily used for that live action programming. The advertising is secondary to the game itself. What we would not allow would be, instead of showing, so say the street is closed, and instead of showing the game, they're showing their drink specials on there.
Correct.
Or rotating it through to, Bud Light, Miller Lite, whatever. That would be in violation of our billboards.
Okay.
What happens if they take that video board and put it on the back of their building where there's no traffic?
Then there'd be no distraction, it wouldn't come into play at all. It'd basically be internal to the development, similar to the Rocker Stadium.
So in other words, it's strictly we're talking about street view. Otherwise, it could be used anywhere on the property as long as it don't interfere with vehicle traffic.
Correct.
What about neighbors and stuff like that?
Yeah, so we talk about in the code that you cannot have any glare, light intrusion basically on adjacent properties or buildings. So that is a concern.
How often are the streets closed? Every game?
Yep, for all the games, and then, they are closed for, say, the Cellcom Marathon, which I guess ran its last leg this last year, but there are certain other events throughout the year where the streets are closed.
So another concern of mine would be the sound. Obviously, if you're doing video, most people would like to hear the announcers. So how would we regulate sound?
I'll be honest, sound in the stadium district during a Packer game, we have bands already. Our noise ordinance does exempt kind of those areas for those events.
But it has to be turned off at 10.
I believe 11 o'clock.
It's 11?
Correct.
11? I know we were sitting up at the house listening to the Beach Boys, and I'm 4 blocks away, it depends upon which way the wind's blowing is what you're gonna hear, so that's a tough one to really take care of is sound. The rest, I think, can be managed.
And to be clear, from a staff standpoint, to us, it doesn't matter one way or another. What we're looking for really is clarification because we know we're getting more and more requests for these. The reason I brought this forward is to get clarification from the Site Plan Review Committee, Plan Commission, Village Board. Either these are allowed or they're not. So that's the reason this was brought forward, to again provide clarification to us as staff. But I thought, okay, if you want to allow them, okay, here is an ordinance that would allow them in a certain limited scope.
Are these permanent installations or just something that they haul out on the weekend for a particular game?
These would be permanent. There are some establishments that do bring out temporary boards, and they take them back in when the streets open up. These would be permanent installations.
So I'm just hypothetically thinking out loud here, and I'm not picking on the Packers or anything, but you got the Don Hudson Center right there. And that has two huge, let's call them signs. Okay, they are signs. What would stop the Packers from converting those into static boards until the street is closed and then turning those into video?
I guess I'm just trying to think what their rationale would be to do that.
Well,
since
they'd have video on the in the tailgate zone.
in the tailgate zone.
So if you're,
Oh,
you know, I don't know what's on them now because they've been there forever, but you used to have the big Nike check on them and all that on facing Oneida Street.
yeah. So the code is written such that it's very clear that the village board has full discretionary authority whether to approve or deny a video board location. So if you say, you know what, that's not a good location because of the potential impacts on, basically we're providing screening for folks in Green Bay that are at the Packer game. There's no benefit to the folks here in Ashwaubenon. That'd be a rationale to deny it.
Okay, so here's another thing that I know goes on at Lambeau Field a lot, because I watched it a lot. There's an awful lot of testing and an awful lot of, I don't know, times that those boards are operating in Lambeau Field now. And you can see those from the street. I mean, how would we regulate that?
So again, they can only be turned on when the street is closed, even for testing.
Okay, even for testing, all right.
Well, anybody want to do anything? I already told you my thoughts on it, so.
Are you concerned at all of this expanding?
Certainly.
So I can see, you know, let's just assume, again, not picking on the Packers, love them to death, but they own all that property to the south of Lambeau Field. And I have no idea what they're thinking, but what if they were to ask for them to be in that area? Now, those streets get closed during their games, I know that. I mean, would it expand into that area?
These would be the areas south of the stadium in the residential area?
The residential area?
Yeah, so that area is not zone sports entertainment, and it's not adjacent to Holmgren Way, Mike McCarthy Way, or Armed Forces.
But let's say they put a practice field there, and let's say they take everything that's in the sports entertainment district and put it there,
It would still take a rezoning action by the village board to approve it.
which they're probably gonna have to do. All right. Just saying, I would have a little fear of it expanding a little farther than the,
You know, that brings up another question, Dan. How big can it, you know, let's say we have a video board. How big can it be? Is there,
9
kinda
by
read-
20,
yeah,
Huh?
9 by 20.
almost 200 square feet.
Yep, so that's, full disclosure, that's the size of
Where
the
do I
one that
see
Newsies
200
has
square feet?
on the second story of their Connex box, as a maximum.
I think my greatest concern in regards to all of that, whether the street's closed or not, is what's the line of vision in regards to that? Is this where it's located and how it's located? Is it still going to be visible to the people who are in open traffic lanes, who should be paying attention to all the people who are walking in that area because they parked outside of the zoned section that we're talking about? And how much of a distraction does that become? Because it's a suicide mission on a Packard day to begin with. You know, so if you're having larger activities like that throughout that area, I still think it's just another distraction for what's already a traffic issue and a liability. Personally, that's my take on it.
Yeah, I kind of see it, and just in general, as more of not, aside from those concerns that Kerry expressed, what do we, at some point, are we going to look like a little mini Times Square? I mean, it's going to be to the point, if this is allowed, and I think maybe that's a little where Dan might have been going, if there's just anybody can do it, and if it's going on everywhere within the district, is it going to get to the point where it's just saturated? Is it going to be a negative for the community? That's my concern.
Yep, and that's certainly, you know, a legitimate concern, especially for a site plan review committee.
I see this also as a nightmare to patrol because if somebody's, down there and there's something that's on there that's not considered part of the ordinance, how it's happening on say a Saturday afternoon at 2:30, is anybody here gonna be able to go down there? So it's kind of gonna be a patrol nightmare. But
So the idea of the board is to have games in these businesses. Could there be a way that it's restricted that you couldn't view it from the street? In other words, I'm just trying to think of like Stadium View, just using them because they're there. I mean, I would think he could put that on that back entrance to the banquet hall and screen that from the street pretty easily and still use the parking lot. I'm just trying to think out of the box here that, okay, so do we want to completely eliminate video or do we want to make it where it's unseeable from the street,
Yeah, and,
And then are we even doing it any justice?
we talked about, when we first talked about the ordinance, we talked about screening and, well, okay, should we allow them, but they have to be screened from view from the street? And we decided that was just gonna be impossible to try to administer, so that's why we said we're gonna have the streets be closed for them to be on. Now, that said, I know again, there are establishments down there that bring out, basically video boards on a box that roll out and they roll them back. That's fine. Where we ran into issues are these permanent installations, and trying to figure out a way to, again, either allow them or not allow them. And that was the direction that we needed as staff.
One thing I did want to highlight that Aaron mentioned earlier is that each of these permanent boards or video boards are, it's a permitting process that the committees and the board have to approve. So, and there's conditions that can be placed on them. So Dan, like you said, if there's a concern that the site plan committee might have, or staff for that matter, might have where this is just too viewable to the right of way, the staff and the committee can place restrictions on that particular board to be turned or somewhat, or just not allowed in general. There are too many for example, there are too many in this area. We think this is a safety concern to moving traffic or whatever. So no, unfortunately not. Due to the safety of the citizens and the village, we're not gonna allow a third to be in this particular zone, whatever, what have you. So there's a lot of examples you can come up with, but I guess the point is that there is a lot of staff and village committee and board involvement still on each individual TV permit board, I guess, for lack of a better term, because conditions can be placed on each specific one for each permit. So it's not a rubber stamp, right? So they come in for a permit, it's rubber stamped by the staff, and then you're going to start seeing these all throughout down Holmgren Way. So there are different things that can go into it. So safety being certainly one of them.
So with that being said, Patrick, let me ask you this. If site plan decides that we have 2 of these on Holmgren and we shouldn't have any more, they can just say no because I think there's too many and there's not going to be a lawsuit, because that's the problem. Because once you start denying to one person, they're going to say, oh, well, you let them have it and you didn't let me have it, and you just don't like me. So that's the problem.
There is certainly a risk that anybody can make with that kind of argument, absolutely. But as long as there's a rational basis that the committees and the board is rejecting or approving some of these video board permanent stands, then yeah, it could satisfy that requirement. But now, with that said, there are so many examples you can think of. But yeah, Mary, I agree with you. I think you run a risk of having some kind of argument from an applicant who gets denied because those 2 got it and I didn't. Yeah, so this concern is valid. What the request is, why it's denied, why it's approved, again, it's going to be very specific. But yeah, the board and the committees would run a risk for something like that.
So I just thinking about road closure. I don't know this, but it feels to me Armed Force Way gets closed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm on Armed Force Way and I put up a video board, and it's closed for whatever, their RV show or whatever it is, I would be able to turn that board on.
Correct.
And the guy on Holgram couldn't.
Correct. Just like the one on Oneida Street couldn't ever.
Yeah, it would never be on.
Right.
So just to clarify, your position then is that none of these, if it's done individually, as I understand it, every decision is non-precedent setting, correct? From your standpoint, from your opinion?
Every application would come in through like a permitting process, my understanding is, right?
And
So,
to address that, yeah. So each one does to be judged on its own merit. The code does specify that the board has full discretionary authority to approve or deny a permit. But I think to Patrick's point, you can't make arbitrary no's or yeses. If you're going to approve a video board, you need to have a rationale for why it's approvable. If you're gonna say no to a video board, it needs to have a solid rationale for why this one, why not this one, but yes to the other one. So again, it goes back to, kind of some of your variance days, Board of Appeals, where you must have a logical, rational process on why you either approve or deny a video board in this instance.
Well, and that's why I guess my concern is from those experiences that I've had on zoning is that somebody will always see precedent in what somebody else did, no matter how your rationale is laid out. Which goes to Mary's point that I think this will invite maybe not litigation, but controversy. That's,
So,
Aaron, you had said earlier that now they're doing this, but with smaller units and mobile units?
Correct.
So I assume they want something outside the building, obviously in their patios or whatever?
Yep, permanent installations. Like, Anduzzi's is probably the best example of one that put a video board up. They haven't turned it on yet because they haven't had the approval to do that.
There's no restrictions for them doing that, or is this the 55-inch rule?
As it stands right now, they cannot turn it on because a couple of reasons. It was not approved by site plan, and it does not meet any of our current codes.
I'm talking about the ones that they're using now.
Oh, the temporary ones
Yeah.
that they roll in and out? That's always been just kind of a game day thing, and there's really no regulation to that.
So what happens if that one's 6 feet by 8 feet?
I guess if it gets to that point, we have to bring another code amendment forward and say, okay, now we have to address these portable ones. Because as it stands right now, those are kind of the same gray area that this is.
The other question that I would have is there ever going to be a setup where you're going to have it set like liquor licenses or something like that, where you're looking at a saturation in a particular area? So there's going to be a limit to how long this person can have it, or he or she would apply for it, get it, and it remains in their control as long as they're in business operations. Is there going to be a renewal period where somebody else can step in and take that if it's a limited number of openings for signage in that area?
I don't know that there's a set limit on them at this point. If that's something the board decide, you know what, okay, we're okay with it, but no more than 4 in this area, we would have to go back and try to figure out, okay, how do we administer that and what's the best process for that? What's the fairest way to do that?
And I think that would, again, have to go back to be a point of consideration. Again, otherwise, it's going to look like Vegas in a sense, where you were talking about that before, where it's just a saturated area.
well, I think that's the key too. That's the key word, saturation. You know what I mean? Hypothetical again. We come to the 4th sign in one area, 4th video sign in one area, and Kerry says, it's just saturated. And some of us agree with him, and then all of a sudden it gets voted down, and then guess what happens? Somebody else doesn't believe that's the meaning of saturated. That's what we've seen in past experience in zoning, and I think is that what you're talking about, Ken?
Yep.
So, I think, I'm, kind of getting a sense of how the committee would like to make a recommendation on this. So it might be so I guess You can continue to discuss it as much as you'd like. I'm happy to do that. But if you're at a point where you'd like to make a recommendation, we probably could kind of move on.
Well, so let me ask you another question.
Yep.
So the rocker, okay. I mean, I guess technically we could call that a scoreboard. But that's a video board. That's a large video board.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure you can't see that video board from the street, can you?
You can.
You can if you're looking for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking of that one too. You can see it if you're looking for it.
Now, if you're driving on Holmgren Way, you know, right, unless you're, to Gary's point, looking for it, you're not gonna notice it.
So there's no distraction. That's
Right.
what we would call
But
distraction.
that is, we measured that one time, didn't we, Aaron?
It's about 350 yards, 350 feet.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
huge board.
Yeah.
And
No,
I
I'm
would
sorry,
call
from-
it a scoreboard.
From Holmgren Way, it's about 350 feet.
Oh, 350 feet. But, and technically, we could call that a scoreboard.
Yeah.
Well,
Video scoreboard,
they
kinda
do,
like what Lambeau
you know,
Fields.
and oftentimes they do advertise home games, different things that are coming.
In the
Yeah.
park, well, there's no one there.
Pardon?
In the park, well, no one's there.
Yeah.
They do. Guess I've never seen that.
I don't know, I'm getting to be like you guys. I don't think I want to see the place saturated with them. You know, I think it's do we want them or don't we want them? I think it all boils down to that.
Have we looked at any other entertainment districts and what they're doing?
Yeah, we looked at, you know, Nashville, Tampa, Omaha had an area, a lot of college towns, kind of similar to this. When they do allow them, when it's this close to the street, usually it's when the streets are closed.
The streets are closed.
You drive right down downtown Chicago. You're looking at them
Yeah.
right on the
Wrigley
walls
Field,
of the highway, and they're huge. They're as big as this room.
That and the bullets.
So these things aren't cheap.
No,
No.
I mean, so these people are thinking that it's okay to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars for 10 games?
that's outside my pay grade.
That's the thing, is that they don't use it for just 10 Packer games.
Yeah, that's would be my
They
fear.
will use it for every out of the area game. They'll use it for every, you know, and I don't want to keep going down that road, but like I already said, I'm not in favor of putting all this down in the entertainment area. So that's just my opinion. I'm only one person.
So let's assume something happens here, and we talked about enforcement. What would the penalty be? Have you talked that out?
So it'd be our standard citation, just what, 681 or 6?
Yeah, it's probably, I forget what the bond amount is, plus penalties and costs, but there is an enforcement section in chapter 17 where this would fall under. So citations would be the first route. Well, obviously compliance would be the first route like we normally do, and then citations certainly. If it gets to the point where, you know, that enforcement just isn't enough, then there's other recourse and litigation that we could take to force it to be shut off or removed.
So you don't think we could do something where it's completely screened from traffic?
I'm wondering what that would look like.
So am I, but we wouldn't know that until somebody brought something.
Now, if someone's gonna put something internal, you know, say they have a courtyard and you can't see it from the street and they wanna do something, cool, knock yourself out. That's not subject to site plan review
Yeah,
committee.
I
Well,
would
what-
agree with that.
What's the difference if they use a big LED screen or a 100-inch TV?
Well, this is 200 square feet, 100-inch screen TV is
Yeah,
about 30.
I know, but I'm saying, if you group them TVs together, you can make it that big too.
What's the rationale for having them aimed at the street?
I think initially the thought process just wasn't there.
I
As
mean,
far
I'm
as what the
thinking
concern-
about, you know, if it's aimed at the street, then there's people walking by, and pretty soon you could get large crowds watching one large video screen because that's where the action is, and pretty soon, you know what I'm saying?
So this is my thought. It's
The
sitting
street
in
could
a,
be full of people watching the video board, right?
That was another rationale to make sure the street is closed.
but it's sitting in a, well, like Mary says, I'm not sure we can enforce that around the clock, 365 days a year. But if it's sitting in a container, like, let's use Ndoozies, I'm assuming that's why this is here. If they put that against Holgram Way, Like if it's sitting on the sidewalk facing their front door, I would consider that completely screened from traffic.
We would too.
So, I mean, I don't know how we would regulate that, but I would think that we could accommodate something in that area like that.
And that would be subject to site plan review. So at that point, they'd bring the proposal forward and say, you know, we want to do this. Okay, which way are you facing it? Oh, it's facing towards the building with sides on it. You can't see it from the street. From site plan review committee, be like, okay, that makes sense.
So then at that point, we wouldn't have to have the enforcement of the street closed and regulating that and you're saying our sound ordinance would take care of the sound out there. So, I mean, I think I would look at it on that approach, that it has to be completely screened from the street and forget about if the street's closed or not. Cause I don't think it's fair for, I don't know who's on Pilgrim Way. Well, they're building a brand new building on Armed Forces, right? Now, he could put out a big screen there and maybe 100 days a year use it. And the guy right around the corner could not. You know, so I think it would be fair to look at it that if it's completely screened from the street, then who cares when they put it on? As long as it comes through site plan, because I don't think I want a box alongside the sidewalk permanently around the clock unless it's a part of the structure of the facility. I'm just trying to think that out. I don't want just a tin box sitting out there with a TV sunken in it.
Great. I think for me, Dan, part of the problem is the size. The size of it, and like I said, if you okay one, you're gonna have a lot more. And do we want, say, 4 or 5 of those down there? I think that's just excessive. So.
But if it had to fall into, I'm just thinking out loud now, if it had to fall into site plan regs and we have setbacks off of the street and all that stuff and it has to be in harmony with the building and all that stuff, I mean, with that, I'm just trying to think of how it could be used. I don't know why these people want to spend 150, 200 grand on a TV and outside, but.
Large video boards of any kind, even a large screen TV, you could be standing totally behind it. And you brought up the Vegas reference. It can light up the whole street just by reflection. So it would use the term in here, light trespass, is that a correct term? I see a high potential for that regardless of whether people can see what's going on the screen. And that and saturation is what I'm concerned about.
So what would we do, just table this for now? Deny it?
You have several items. If you want to be tabled to think about it, it can be sent over for next meeting or next month's meeting if you want to do it that way. If there are some if there are recommendations you want staff to edit, review, tweak this, I would request or suggest that the motion would just be to send back to staff. If there's a approval or denial, just make that motion to the village board. So I'd be recommend denying or recommending approving of the ordinance as it is. If there's more thought process on the ordinance as it is, just table it for the next month. Or if there's revisions you'd like to see added, just refer that back to staff.
I guess my thought would be, right now, to either table or deny, and then if somebody wants this, come back with a lot more details on how you're gonna mitigate all these issues that have been brought up. And if they can't be, then the decision makes itself.
I would agree.
Yeah, I think I'd have to go along with that one myself.
So does somebody want to make a motion?
Well, I'll move to deny.
Okay, we have a motion to deny. Do we have a second?
I would second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to deny. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
So this ordinance will go to Plan Commission this afternoon with a recommendation for denial from Site Plan Review Committee.
Okay. Thank you. Number 7, items for next agenda. I'm sure we'll have items.
Right now, I only have one very minor item for the one 2 weeks from now. I'd rather not call you all in for that one very minor item.
Okay.
So I'm gonna talk to the applicant to see if there's a way to push that off for 2 weeks until the first Tuesday of September.
Okay. Now I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed. Motion carried. Thank you. We're done.